After 25 years of marriage, I thought I had a partner for life. Instead, I was just financing my wife's affair with my brother-in-law, Marcus. I didn't scream. I just showed the photos and receipts. You've got 5 seconds, Marcus. The real moment came at Sunday brunch. I raised my glass and said, to the man comforting my wife every Thursday, Marcus, how's the hotel suite? She thought I'd beg her to stay. I handed her the divorce papers. You ended this. I'm just the one burying it. Then came their wedding invite, with a handwritten, no hard feelings. So I sent them something they'll never forget. I lifted my glass to the woman I had loved for more than 20 years as we celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary at a darkly lit Italian restaurant with our closest friends and family. Vanessa was her name. She was blonde, self-assured, and had that practiced smile she wore in front of cameras or when she wanted a pricey item. In a burgundy dress that embraced her like a secret, she looked lovely that evening. As I raised the champagne glass, my hand shook a little. Everything appeared to be too ideal. The wine glasses glinted in the golden light. The glossy walls reverberated with the sound of laughter. Our song, or what was once our song, was being played by the band. Excusing myself, I went to the bathroom. At that point, everything started to fall apart. The door creaked open as I was washing my hands, and a woman wearing a dark green dress entered. Not an employee. I didn't recognize anyone. Nervously, she looked around before leaning in and whispering, "Your wife?" She added something to your beverage. My heart stopped. While everyone was preoccupied, she informed me she witnessed Vanessa pull out a packet and stir something in. I was waiting for the joke as I looked at her. She thought it was humorous and laughed about it, but it didn't feel like a joke. I floated past her and into the hallway. The distance seemed to be a mile long. Too loudly, my footsteps reverberated. My breathing became labored. I assumed Vanessa was laughing with her brother-in-law, Marcus, back at the table. I sat down, and she reached for her drink. I got there sooner. I replaced her spectacles, invisible and smooth. Adrenaline gave me the impression that I had just set off a grenade, even though I had done nothing wrong. I forced a smile on her face. To forever, she added, clinking her new glass to mine. Coming from her was rich. When the server brought dessert 12 minutes later, I saw that she was blinking more than normal. The smudging of her mascara had begun. Something Marcus said made her laugh too loudly. She then attempted to stand. Her knees gave way. The whole eatery froze. "Whoa, sweetie," I said as I caught her. "Are you all right?" Her pupils were hazy, and her mouth was slack as she muttered something incomprehensible. I assisted her in resettling herself. It was thought that perhaps the champagne had struck more forcefully than anticipated. However, I was aware she had spiked my drink, and I knew it. The sole issue, whatever the hell it was, I'd handed her her share. Everyone laughed uncomfortably. A joke about anniversary shots hitting too quickly was made. I wasn't laughing, though. As if by reflex, I saw her rest on Marcus's shoulder. That's when it all came together. I had always placed too much trust in her. Never paid attention to the odd texts, the late-night workouts, or the smirks. Now, however, the mask came off, and all I saw was a lady who had quietly and methodically come to hate me. I haven't spoken yet, not in front of the throng or our children. But within me, something broke. My friend Tyler, a private investigator, owed me a favor, so I took my phone out from beneath the table and texted him saying, "I need everything." "Vanessa, Marcus," the phone taps, "GPS cams that are hidden. I want everything." When she arrived, the waitress asked whether we wanted the bill. "Oh," I replied, grinning broadly. "We have only just begun." Vanessa murmured something that sounded like Marcus's name as she sagged next to me, her eyelids fluttering. I gave her a hand pat. I urged, "Don't go to sleep on our special night, sweetie." She made an effort to grin. Failed. She was unaware that I had apprehended her. Not quite yet. However, I was determined to ensure that this evening would be the last time she would grin in front of me without repercussions. What if she believed that this dinner was simply another one, She was unaware of the hell she had just entered. Still in a fog, she remained silent for the most of the drive home, leaning her head against the window. In front of the children, I pretended to be the good husband by helping her get into the car, fastening her seatbelt, and telling everyone that she had most likely combined wine and medicine once more. This time it wasn't a lie, was it? I could see Marcus constantly texting in the rearview mirror, as though the night couldn't come to an end quickly enough. His thumbs moved over the screen. I reminded myself to look into his phone logs. Tyler gave a thumbs up in response. I only needed that. I led Vanessa to her bed at home. Without grace, she fell upon the mattress. Her gown creased. She had knotted hair. Her scent was no longer seductive. I covered her with the covers. She now appeared very tiny. So innocuous? However, she was no longer innocuous. I went to the garage, where I had concealed the bugging kit, as soon as the bedroom door clicked shut behind me. Months ago, when I was going through a paranoid phase, I purchased it. It's funny that at the time, I felt like I was being too theatrical. I was not paranoid enough, it turns out. I began by talking about her car, a sleek white Lexus that I got her for Christmas last year. I put a tracker in under the dashboard. I went on to her gym bag after that. Anticipating yoga equipment, I opened it. I discovered that she had tied her leggings around a prepaid phone. A fire. I kept my hands off of it. Didn't switch it on. Simply snapped pictures. Proof. Around 1 a.m., I went back upstairs. She was snoring softly while she slept. I spent a long minute staring at her. She decided to give me this as a gift after 23 years. She was alert and behaved as though nothing had happened the previous evening. How did I fare last night? In between gulps of dark coffee, she inquired. It felt like a truck struck me. I said in a neutral tone, I think you drank too quickly. She shrugged, chuckled, and bent to plant a kiss on my cheek. I gave her permission. For the time being. For the next 3 days, I pretended to be a devoted husband in order to gather information. Tyler provided hotel receipts, video footage, and phone logs quickly. For the past 4 months, Marcus and Vanessa had been renting a suite once a week on Thursdays. The same hotel every time. Always using fictitious names. She checked in with one of her old college IDs. They even had body oil, strawberries, and champagne sent to their room. Everything was planned by her, right down to the hour. And there was video, them in the corridor. She seemed to have not smiled at me in years, as she threw back her head and pressed her chest on him while laughing. I watched it all the way through. I wanted to experience every bit of betrayal, not because I had to. I was careful not to numb it. I desired to commit it to memory. My expectations were not met by the confrontation. I refrained from screaming. I didn't toss anything. She would have received that as a present, a means for her to seem to be the victim. No, I waited until our family's Sunday brunch. There was Marcus. So were her sister Rachel, their adolescent children, our son Ryan, and my daughter Lily. In the middle of the meal, I got up, raised my glass once again, and said the restaurant's toast once more. To 25 years, I murmured, looking directly into Vanessa's eyes. Everyone gave a clap, lifted their eyeglasses. And to the man who has been consoling my wife every Thursday afternoon, I continued, how are you doing in that hotel suite, Marcus? Quiet. Forks stopped in midair. Lily's face turned white. Rachel's coffee cup fell. As if she hadn't heard me correctly, Vanessa blinked slowly and practiced. Marcus opened his mouth to say something, but I interrupted him. Marcus, I have receipts, logs of video. You used her fictitious identity when you signed for room service. I looked across at Vanessa. By the way, I moved the printed picture of her laughing with her hair knotted in a towel across the table. You look good in that. I'm sorry you didn't wear it for me. Vanessa's face remained composed. No, humans would have done that. All she did was roll her eyes. She stood up and replied, oh, grow up. In any case, it's not like we've been in love for years. Everyone's eyes were fixed on her. Don't seem shocked. Since 2015, You have been uninteresting. I gaped at her in shock. And you're allowed to give me drugs because of that? That was meant to help you relax and stop being so stiff. You take things so personally, God. That's where I may have lost it. Rather, I took out the last packet, which contained copies of her correspondence with Marcus, as well as the divorce documents and asset split. I had everything, and I left as the place fell apart around her, her family turning away in disgust, Marcus growing pale next to her. Not because I was weak, but because I had had enough of being her idiot. Her voice was as harsh as shards of glass as she followed me barefoot out to the driveway. "Oh, you're the victim now," she yelled, "because you had a gotcha moment in front of the family. You're behaving like a hero. Really grown up, Daniel." I continued to walk. My chest burned, even though the night air was chilly. She took hold of my arm. "You believe that after all these years, you will abandon me, considering all I sacrificed for you." I spun around and gave her a direct look. "Vanessa, what specifically did you give up?" "Deference. Thursdays with my brother-in-law on a regular basis." Her face remained unflinching. "I have no regrets. No embarrassment. Only poison." She growled, "I should have left you years ago. You were a reliable choice. A supplier, but you're dull and aloof." I felt like I was dying on the inside every night while I watched you sit at that dumb desk. "You mean the Lexus you purchased with that desk?" I said, "The holidays, the home, the private school of Lily." She grinned. "You're not getting it. You didn't. Women don't crave men like you. They settle for them." That struck a deeper chord than I anticipated. Perhaps because I had already considered it before. Her voice rose as she continued to speak. "It was simpler, so I stayed. However, you would be foolish to pretend that you were a prize. I needed a vacation from the 9-to-5 grind, and you were a job." With my hands clutched at my sides, I stood silently. Not because I intended to strike her. No, because I felt like screaming. However, I didn't. I went to my car instead, unlocked the trunk, and removed a tiny luggage. Just in case, I had packed it that morning. "Are you going?" With her arms crossed, as if she were in control, she questioned. "No," I replied. "You are." She chuckled. In fact, I laughed. "This is my home." The deed, which I had transferred months prior when I began to see the warning signs, was in my bag when I took it out. No longer. She stopped laughing. I said I saw this coming. Additionally, I've had time to get ready. I was organizing myself while you were preoccupied with Marcus. So allow me to simplify this. You're going to sign the divorce papers, pack your bags, and depart tonight. You intend to forgo paying alimony, since I possess the video, the written word, the medicines, everything. For the first time, her face fell. "If you push me, I'll destroy your entire reputation. Your employment will be lost. Your companions, your picture. I'll make you notorious in groups that you believed to be your worshippers." "Vanessa, don't put me to the test. Not today." Like she was staring at a stranger, she fixed her gaze on me. Whispering, "You're not who I married," she said. "No," I replied. "That man would have begged you to stay. I'm the one who watched him die the moment you chose Marcus." Once more, I turned away from her, entered. No matter where she went, I didn't care. I didn't give a damn who she called. Now that part of me was buried, the one that held on to her and hoped she would wake up. Lily was sitting on the bed's edge upstairs, her knees drawn up to her chest. "Are you all right, Dad?" she inquired. I swallowed the lump in my throat and nodded. "I'll be." She was eager to ask more questions. Her mother had deceived us all, but I lacked the courage to say it aloud. So I sat next to her, wrapped my arm around her shoulders, and we sat quietly. The front door downstairs banged. That was the end of the 25 years of deception that had been a part of my existence. The following morning seemed surreal. I heard quiet when I awoke. Vanessa isn't making coffee. There isn't any perfume in the hallway. No high heels clattering on the marble floor. The house was empty, clean yet not vacant. as though the place had been cleansed by her disappearance. I was oblivious to everything as I sat at the kitchen table and stared at a mug of unopened coffee while recalling all the mornings I had spent with her. While she was likely saying, "Love nothings" to Marcus in some expensive hotel room that I had paid for, I was thinking back to the evenings I worked late, thinking that she was grateful for the sacrifices. Lily, still in her jammies, descended. She sat across from me, poured herself some cereal, and said nothing. "Will Mom return?" Quietly, she inquired. I inhaled. "Not to this residence." She nodded while glancing at her bowl. I listened to her words. Last night, I didn't inquire about the part. I knew it made no difference. It was poison in any form. Lily said, "She's been different for a long time." I simply did not want it to be true. I said neither did I. Before I could utter another word, the doorbell rang. Marcus was inside when I opened it. Naturally. No grin. No justification. This time, no phony charm. I noticed a slight bruise on his cheek, which was most likely caused by Rachel, and he appeared to have not slept. "In front of everyone, you delivered your speech. Can we have a conversation now?" He inquired. "You have 5 seconds to act." "Dude, Daniel, this isn't how it was supposed to happen." 4. She informed me that you two were essentially living together, that you no longer even slept in the same bed. She claimed to feel confined. 3. He held up his hands. "Look, you see, I was dumb. However, I didn't push anything." She too. "I apologize." I clenched my jaw and stared at him. 1. He took a step back. All right, I'm going. All right, because the next time you come near my kid or my house, you won't be leaving." He made no attempt to argue. Like a stray dog, he simply turned and walked away. As I watched him leave, I became aware that my anger had subsided. Simply disgust. Deep. Everlasting. Gust. I had already had a conversation with my lawyer before lunchtime. The papers had been served to Vanessa. She still hadn't replied. However, I ensured that the file had the evidence attached. She could be dragged through the courts or sign in silence. Her decision. Later on in the afternoon, Rachel called me. "May I visit?" she inquired. An hour later, she appeared by herself. No cosmetic. Red-eyed. I had never seen her appear so human. As soon as I opened the door, she responded, "I didn't know." "I promise you, Daniel, I had no idea." I opened the door for her. She pretended to browse Pinterest while sitting at the exact table Vanessa used to use, most likely messaging Marcus all the while. "I expelled him," Rachel declared, "and I shared everything with the children. They have a right to know his true character." I gave a nod. "I'm sorry you had to learn that way." "No," she replied. "I apologize for not witnessing what you were going through. You were worthy of better." All of us did. We sat silently once more, a pattern that seems to be developing in my life. Clarity and silence. I looked through old photo albums that night. Family vacations, birthdays, anniversaries. And in each picture, I noticed the same thing. Me grinning broadly. Vanessa strikes the ideal stance. She never actually looked at me, though. I put them in a box and sealed it with tape. It was time to put the past in a box. Without her lies, her phony cries, and her shallow smirks, it was time to start over. I would too. Beginning tomorrow. I did something I hadn't done in years the following morning. I took today off. No email. No gatherings. Don't use spreadsheets. After dropping Lily off at school, I continued driving rather than turning to face the workplace. It was only the engine humming, myself, and a silence that no longer seemed empty. It was liberating. I found myself an hour outside of town by the lake. Vanessa often complained that it was too dull. I pulled into the parking lot, got out, and stood there. The wind was blustery. The scent of cool water and pine filled the air, and I felt like I could breathe for the first time in a long time. In my pocket, my phone buzzed. Tyler sent it. "She is in a panic." My lawyer called hers. "She is attempting to bargain." She was, of course. I didn't respond. I crossed the lake's surface by skipping a rock after walking down to its edge. Before it vanished, it created 5 waves. Vanessa most likely assumed that I would cave in because I was scared of the scandal. I'm worried about Lily, fearful about the story spreading. She never realized, though, that I wasn't afraid of losing her. Even though I knew everything, I was afraid I would end up becoming the man who stayed. No more. There was a parcel on the front step when I arrived home. No address for return. I slowly opened it. One envelope with the scribbled words, "For when you're ready," was inside. The penmanship was familiar to me. Vanessa, I opened it, against my better judgment. The 6-page letter was defensive and rambling. She attributed it to stress, blamed boredom, blamed me. She went on to say that Marcus wasn't the first, that others had existed. I had never even met them. She claimed to feel stuck in a state of perfection, that I had constructed a golden cage for her. In fact, she wrote golden cage, as if she were the victim. She claimed that although her love for me had changed, she still loved me. She expressed her hope that one day I would comprehend. Don't apologize. No regret. I set it on fire. Lily and I sat down later that evening. She needed to hear more from me. Not the unsightly details. Not the hotel rooms or the medicines. Just the facts. I whispered softly, "Your mom and I are divorcing." She refrained from crying. She merely gave a nod. I assumed. I said, "I want you to know that you are not to blame for this." "It's not at all." "I understand," she muttered. Then a time later, "May I remain with you." That almost broke me. I assured him, "You'll always have a home with me." Always. Quiet evenings, attorneys and paperwork occupied the following week. Rachel made several visits. We avoided discussing the past, not in relation to Marcus. Only about music and books, dumb things that didn't hurt. When Lily became ill, she brought over soup. Once, after Lily had gone to bed, I stayed up late, talking to her on the couch until we both fell asleep sitting up. It wasn't romantic. It was authentic. I forgot that there might be such a serenity. Vanessa made another attempt, arrived without warning, crying and breathing heavily, and asked if we could start over. I didn't shout. I refrained from using profanity. I just said, looking her in the eye, "Vanessa, you put a stop to this. The only one bearing it is me." She didn't say anything. The taillights of her car faded into the night as I watched it drive away, and I realized it was finally over. Weeks went by. Something changed in the house. Warmer, relaxed, everything, even the walls, seemed to breathe again when Vanessa's pervasive strain was gone. I began to doze off during the night. So did Lily. Slowly, she started laughing again, initially hesitant, but authentic. She even extended an invitation to spend the weekend with a buddy. There was no longer a crushing hush. It was quiet. The bedroom was redecorated by me, not with malice, but out of need. I removed her framed pictures from the walls, took out the fragrant candles that she never lit, packed up the silk pillows she had chosen for their appearance rather than their comfort. I swapped out the decor for items that reflected Lily and I. Pictures of the family. Warm illumination. She assisted me in selecting a new blanket. The room felt less fake, she said. I understood her meaning perfectly. One evening, I sat with a glass of bourbon on the porch and gazed at the sky. Since the early years of our marriage, when I believed that being still was acceptable, before Vanessa made me feel that it was a waste of time, I hadn't done that. She was constantly in need of something. Pay attention. Bravo. Cash. Verification. Peace yet never. She was bored with peace. I kept missing that part until it cried out to me without her. Rachel texted me that same evening. "Are you up?" "Yes, on the porch," I said. 10 minutes later, she appeared. Jeans and a hoodie. No cosmetic. No pretense. At first, we just sat and didn't talk much. It was a gentle breeze. The moon appeared to have its own mysteries as it hovered low. "You know, I think Marcus was always jealous of you," she added after a while. I had one sharp laugh. He showed it in a peculiar way. She said, "He wanted your life. The regard, the constancy. He simply did not wish to earn it." We continued to sit in silence. Then I said, "How about you? Are you all right?" "I'll be," she declared. "You know I hated her," he said, "for the way she handled you, even prior to the affair. You simply didn't see it. Or perhaps I did," I replied, "but I didn't want to accept it." "You wanted to believe in her more than she deserved," she said, glancing at me. "Half of you weren't fair to her." I turned my head away. Well, she got me completely. For 23 years. "And now?" Rachel inquired. "I rebuild now," I said. She grinned. Tiny, but sincere. The divorce was formalized a few days later. No drama in court. No long battle. Everything was autographed by her. Most likely believed that made her appear honorable. She simply didn't want the truth to be brought to light. More important than retaliation was her reputation. I retained the majority of our possessions, the house, and full custody of Lily. She retained the condo I didn't want, her falsehoods, and her Lexus. She made one final attempt through her attorney. She wanted to pass along a note. It said, "Perhaps you'll come to the realization that you weren't sufficient for me. And perhaps that's all right." When I read it, I chuckled. Not because it was painful. However, it didn't. Not only had she left my home, but she had also left my life and my heart. She could shout all she wanted into the empty walls of her condo. I had stopped listening. I took Lily out to dinner the day after the documents were signed. Only the two of us. We visited the same Italian eatery where it all started. At first, she hesitated, but then I grinned and said, "Let's get it back." We took seats at another table. Not a family. Toasts. No talks. Only pizza. Laughter. And stories, actual ones. When she inquired about my time in college, I opened up to her about things I had never previously discussed. Until dessert, we were laughing. "You've got a great daughter," the hostess commented to me as we were leaving. "I understand," I replied. "I got out of hell because of her." Lily gave me a hug at the door when we arrived home. She said, "Dad, you have my admiration. You didn't break down." I gave her head a kiss on top. "That's because you came to keep me upright." Then life started all over again. Not flawlessly, but truthfully. Weeks after everything had finally calmed down, I got an invitation one afternoon. It arrived in a substantial white envelope with a gold seal and embossed text. I initially believed it to be a joke, perhaps from a former coworker or an ignorant family member. However, when I opened it, the smile on my face disappeared. Vanessa was getting engaged to Marcus. To my embarrassment, they sent me an invitation. In addition, Vanessa inserted a handwritten note. "No animosity. I assumed you would desire closure. You and Lily are welcome to attend." No term in the English language could adequately describe how I felt at the time. I didn't show Lily the invitation. She already bore enough of Vanessa's burden. She didn't need to add to it. Calmly, I threw the envelope in the garbage, then pulled out the whole bag and burned it in the fire pit in the backyard. I told Rachel about it that evening. Under string lights in the summer sky, we were dining alone on her terrace. "You got an invitation from them." She tightened her jaw and asked. I gave a nod. I suppose I should now celebrate their treachery. Rachel gazed at her glass of wine. She doesn't even feel ashamed. That's the scary part. I remarked she never was. Even after she was apprehended. Even after I presented the proof to her. Along with the rest of her soul, her conscience had already been sold. Rachel gave a sour laugh. I used to be envious of her appearance, confidence, and the way she always entered a room as though she owned it. "I believed that you two had everything worked out." I remarked she did own the room. She simply didn't want me to be in it. After a while of eating in silence, Rachel turned to face me and remarked, "You know, they deserve each other." "Yes," I said, as if two parasites were battling for the same host. After she laughed, something changed. Her face softened as she gave me a longer look. "You've changed since a few months ago." I arched an eyebrow. "That awful, eh?" "No," she answered with a smile. "That is free." I had trouble falling asleep later that evening. Sitting on the side of my bed, I was thinking about something other than Vanessa. No more. I reflected on how nearly I lost myself while attempting to prevent something damaged from collapsing. How long I lived in a shadowy house and thought it was just bad lighting. I got my laptop open and started writing. Not a tirade, not a diary, a letter. To me, she didn't break you, in case you forgot. You were set free by her. I wrote about the times I didn't pay attention, the Thursday nights, the excuses, the sighs that accompanied her smiles. I wrote about how I compromised my sense of value in order to create the appearance of steadiness, how I confused love with survival. I then wrote what was most important. Her shame is not you. She doesn't regret you. Your own resurrection is you. I printed the letter the following morning and put it in my wallet in case I forgot. Of course, the wedding continued. A mutual buddy told me about it. An expensive resort, towers of champagne, a topic from contemporary fairy tales. I didn't go. However, I sent a present. Split down the middle is a framed picture of Vanessa and me from our wedding day. There is a handwritten note on the back. I remember the truth, even if you change history. Well done. I hope you both receive what you are due. Tales of Fairies. Additionally, this one simply took longer than usual. I never received a response. Rachel and I were still hanging out a few months later. It moved slowly, not coerced. She had become close to Lily. She had not laughed in years, yet occasionally I caught her doing so. We were not in a hurry. We didn't need to be saved. Someone who remained unflinching when the past reverberated too loudly. We were sitting in the living room one evening, watching Lily paint, when Rachel leaned over and muttered, "Daniel, you're doing well." I took in the serene tranquility, the constant warmth, and the liberty. I answered, "I believe it at last." And I did. The year ended in silence. No mayhem. Not a single explosion. No scenario when someone storms out into the night or pleads for forgiveness at the end. Just tranquility. Vanessa has vanished from our life. She and Marcus moved to Miami when I last heard from them. Infighting, money troubles, a postponed honeymoon, and even a restraining order filed by one of his ex-partners were among the rumors that circulated back then. I wasn't surprised by any of it. I wasn't interested enough to pay attention to the specifics. But occasionally, I would find myself wondering about myself, not about her. How long did I stay? How I persuaded myself that sacrifice was necessary for loyalty, that suffering was evidence of love, that it was simply a part of being a guy to put up with her silence, her disdain, her icy smiles. It wasn't. Under the garb of patience, it was weakness. Lily and I sat and watched an old movie one evening. Something warm and cheesy, the kind Vanessa would have sneered at in the middle. Leaning on my shoulder, Lily chuckled and murmured, "Now you're happier." I gave her head a kiss on top. "How are you?" She gave a nod. "Mom doesn't make many calls. She isn't prepared to be the mother you are due." Lily remained silent after that. She didn't have to. She said nothing. Not melancholy. Acceptant. That was the appearance of healing. She went to bed later that night, and I went outside. Once more, the stars were visible. The sky is clear. I don't have any weight on my chest. Only air. Right now. Rachel texted me, "Are you still awake?" "Always," I answered. Earlier that day, she texted back a picture of Lily and her niece having fun in the park. A moment of simplicity. A complete one. And I realized I no longer waited for things to get back to normal. I had created a new standard, one that wasn't centered on getting the approval of others. One in which love was demonstrated rather than pleaded for, where I was on solid ground instead of glass. There was no dramatic reckoning when she fell to her knees, courtroom drama, or retaliation at the end of this story. Better things came out of it. Me. Pull once more. I finally remembered who I was before I forgot. Not because of anyone else. If you're reading this and wondering if you're crazy for seeing the lies, the excuses, and the distance, know that you're not. You have just awoken. Don't squander another year attempting to mend broken trust. You can get back up without her falling apart. She built a fortress on your suffering. Let her rot there. You rebuild, more powerful, smarter, free. The best retaliation isn't always loud. It's spending your life apart from the people who have broken you. True strength is found in choosing peace, healing, and rebuilding. Let this serve as a reminder to you if you have been deceived. You don't have to ruin anyone. Simply get up, expand, and let go with honor. Establish your limits. Keep your peace. Make an investment in yourself. This is not unique to you. Tell us about a time when you were betrayed and it transformed your life in the comments section. Together, let's heal. And tell me what got you back up after everything collapsed.